topic today is going to be using evidence-based technology applications. And I am your facilitator, and I'm Denise Barnes, and I'm the employment coordinator for the Florida Center for Inclusive Communities, and we provide employment and transition-related supports to individuals around the state of Florida. All of our webinars have been approved by APD, and you will be able to get a certificate with the APD number on them after you view the entire webinar and complete the certificate, the survey, and then you get a certificate of completion. So, with that being said, I want to get to our bios of our presenters. And sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. I'm on my laptop, not my dual screen today. So I want to introduce to you the first of our three presenters is Dr. Carrie Morse, and she has over 20 years experience of employment, developing employment, education, and independent living programs for teens and adults with special needs. She's worked for 9 years as an exceptional student education high school teacher in Broward County. She also worked in the nonprofit sector. Since 2007, she's been designing and overseeing programs and securing and managing a diverse funding portfolio. Carrie has her master's degree in special education from the University of Florida and a doctorate in special education from Florida Atlantic University. She is the owner of Morse Consulting Group. She is very dedicated to her mission to support nonprofits, community, and government agencies in development of employment, education, and independent living, housing solutions for individuals with special needs and their families. And she currently sits as the president of the FL-APSE and has served on that board since 2016. And we have two more presenters that will be with us today. And they are Doug Meeker. As the CEO and founder of Life Sherpa, Doug combines his background in technology with his passion for helping people with disabilities gain more self-reliance and lead more independent lives. Life Sherpa is an all-in-one software platform that uses assistive technology tools customized to an individual's specific needs to empower support professionals at service organizations to drive enhanced outcomes in vocational, academic, community, and residential programs. Doug was inspired to create Life Sherpa by his son, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, and he struggled with executive functioning and emotional regulation challenges. And prior to becoming involved in disability tech, he served as a senior leader in digital media and software companies, including AOL, Best Software, Examiner, and Gannett. And our third presenter today is Nicole Roberts. Nicole Roberts is an ODT, MOT, OTR, and she is an academic fieldwork coordinator and assistant professional for occupational therapy programs at the University of Sciences in Philadelphia. She's a graduate of University of Sciences. She received her BS in Health Sciences and her MOT degree from the university. Nicole received her OTD from Temple University, and she has worked in a wide variety of pediatric settings, geriatrics, and home care. In academia, Nicole's work has focused on preparing students for their field work and ensuring that they are prepared to work in interprofessional teams. And with that, I am going to introduce to you our speakers, or let them take over, and they're going to talk about using evidence-based technology applications to improve employment outcomes.
Thanks for the introduction, Denise. Thank you everyone for coming to our webinar this evening. I just wanted to go over some of the things that we'll be talking about in the webinar. So first, as Denise described, we're going to talk about how technology can be used across all stages of skill development, from pre-teaching to generalization. So technology is very overwhelming when it comes to deciding which technology application to use with either your students or your clients that you're serving. And so I wanted to kind of frame the way that we should look at technology so that we can consider which applications or which products to use across the learning stages. And I'll go into that a little bit. Then we'll identify best practices and considerations for effective implementation. Specifically, we're going to talk a lot about video-based interventions as one technology tool across platforms. And that's where we'll introduce Doug and Life Sherpa, and he could talk about his platform. And then we're also going to talk about identifying person-centered considerations for technology applications. And you'll hear from Nicole and the research and how the applications of Life Sherpa have really made a difference in those individualized goals for the students. Next slide. So what we're going to think about today is if you support students or individuals, adults in the employment world, you've seen many of these programs that you might be a part of, that you might be teaching with, are focusing on the specific areas of deficits or barriers that students or individuals face. And a lot of times technology can address those barriers. So particularly recently, we talk a lot about anxiety and mental health across folks with or without disabilities. We talk about executive functioning issues, job task performance. So that's the hard skills of the job. We see a lot of work in the area of social communication, and then really in understanding job expectations and maybe having a new job for the first time and what that means to the individual, and then coaching and support and identifying what types of support are the right match for each client or student. Next slide. So when we're talking about technology, we want to keep in mind that there are evidence-based practices specific to technology for specific tools, but across the board, we do see in the research that technology can be used to increase skill performance, and that one seems, obvious. It can also reduce support prompts from paid staff, and that's definitely a goal of all of ours, whether it be in the schools so that students can reach independence, or certainly in adult services where we would like to reallocate staff time to other clients or other projects. So that's really important. Also, standardizing presentation of training. And when a student goes to the next staff, the presentation of training changes. So using technology can really help with that. We're going to talk today a lot about maintaining skill performance and generalization, which is really challenging for students and individuals with disabilities. So technology can really can provide, the means necessary to bridge that gap. And what I wanted to point out is Florida is not one of these states, but there are states across the United States, such as Tennessee, Colorado, North Carolina. They've led initiatives or legislation to become what's called technology first states. And if you're not familiar with what that is, I highly encourage you to Google it. Technology first states are developing framework for systems change, where technology is actually considered first in the discussion of support options for individuals or students through those person-centered approaches. So that means that it can be tied to additional funding. It can be in someone's support plan when they move into developmental disability services. And it also promotes meaningful participation, social inclusion, and self-determination that we may not see without technology. So I'd love to see Florida move in that direction. And, there are a lot of things happening on the state level to where I think that we could get there, but we need to look at those other states as models. Next slide. So the next slide shows the different levels of skill development. And I just wanted to address this quickly. Some of us are in the teaching profession, so this is, you all are very familiar with this, but when someone learns a new skill, first, they go through the skill acquisition stage, then into mastery and fluency once they're able to perform the skill on a regular basis. Then maintenance when they're performing the skill independently without supports, and then generalization, they can generalize that skill into other settings across people or across tasks. And what's important to note here is that, we can look at a number of different skills, whether it's doing laundry or learning a computer-based skill or greeting customers, and these phases of skill development are the same. So instead of using technology per task or per individual, if we frame the use of technology around skill development, I think it would be easier to plug and play, if you will, the different tools according to where every person is in that skill development, in that phase of learning. Next slide. So here is just a visual slide to show the different phases of skill development and the system of supports. So many of you may teach pre-employment skills, whether it be through VR funding or in the school system. And pre-teaching really involves teaching someone why they're learning the skill and why it's important. And maybe some examples and non-examples of when to use the skill, like washing your hands. When do you wash your hands? When is it socially acceptable to wash your hands? When is it mandatory to wash your hands? When don't you need to wash your hands? So a social narrative would be a technological tool that you could use. And there's like a little Bitmoji there where you can make it really fun for students to pre-teach the skill. Then you move into, of course, baseline assessment, where you're collecting information on where that student or that client is at with the skill. Maybe they have some experience or some prior knowledge, and maybe they don't. So you want to gather baseline data to support that. Then you move into skill acquisition, where you can use a lot of these technological tools like video-based interventions. And Life Sherpa uses video-based interventions as part of their platform. They'll discuss that. And then after skill acquisition goes into data collection. Of course, you're measuring how the progress, how that client is doing, and then going into maintenance and generalization. And where that's important is you want to make sure that you are phasing out supports. That's really important so that they don't become reliant on the job coach or the staff to support them in task performance. And so you want to put in certain supports that will allow for that maintenance and generalization. And one that we'll talk about are QR codes, where you can just place a code and then they could use it as a reference. So just looking at those different tools to create the system of support would be important. Next slide. So here I'm just going to talk a little bit about some tech-based tools that can support an individual during the mastery, maintenance, and generalization stages of learning. This one, well, first, research shows that individuals we serve have the ability to self-manage behavior and complete their functional daily tasks independently when provided with support tools and technologies. So many of you are familiar with using maybe video-based interventions to teach or support a skill. But once you go onto the App Store, I don't know if you're like me, but it's very overwhelming. You find an abundant number of tools to help with task completion and daily routines. So I just wanted to kind of throw out a few, if you're not familiar. This first one, I've worked with schools, they enjoy using ChoiceWorks. Basically, it's a platform to where you can embed videos or pictures into someone's daily task and routines. You can add your own pictures and videos, record your own prompts or the client's voice. You can add timers. Reinforcers can be added as well, and you can share it with your team. So staff can have similar boards and use across multiple clients or students, and you can also print for offline use. So this is just one example of a video-based modeling platform that can be used with an individual student to meet their goals. Next slide. The next thing I wanted to talk about are creating QR codes. We use QR codes every day, especially during COVID when we had to go to the restaurants and they only used QR codes. Now we're back to paper menus, it seems like. But QR codes are great, a great tool to move someone from mastery into generalization because it could be a tool that's available and, like I said earlier, used as a reference. So it's a support prompt. It can be used to initiate or review a task or activity. They're very user-friendly, great tool to increase independence, and they're very small. You can place them in the environment, or you can also maybe have a list of QR codes as a reference, like in a book, or they can be on someone's phone that they can pull up. So it's really universal designed. As we know, we use them across different environments, and a great natural support. So, you may want to consider, if someone's having a hard time with a task, instead of providing job coach support and modeling, to go ahead and record that individual completing the task, or a manager completing the task. You can ask what their preference may be, and then you can set up a QR code and ask them to use it when they feel that they'd like to review. Next slide. So the next slide is a visual toolbox. This is just a visual way of showing you how you might use a variety of tech applications to teach employment skills or support individuals at work. So you see again there the social narrative, and I also put on there Kahoot. If you're in the classroom, a lot of teachers are using Kahoot. It's a great way to play review games, vocabulary, different maybe pre-employment skills. It's a nice way of making things fun. So you could use that in the pre-employment arena, or learning new skills. ChoiceWorks, we talked about, is great on the job, onboarding, learning new tasks. That's a great tool to use for that, or even just managing a schedule. They also have a schedule suite as well. Doug will introduce Life Sherpa. That's also a great tool when you are looking at fading job coach supports. And we also mentioned using QR codes. And so now Doug is going to take over, and he's going to not only talk about his tool and its application, but we're going to roll into using remote supports, which I think is really great, especially when you're supporting clients and trying to fade out those paid supports. So Doug Meeker, founder and CEO of Life Sherpa, will talk about that application. Then Nicole will jump in to talk about the research looking into the application of Life Sherpa and its impact on work performance. Take it away, Doug.
Thank you, Carrie. Real quick, you're not going to find Life Sherpa is a little bit different, where we sell to organizations and enterprises. You will find us in the App Store, but much of that is about someone who might be working with a service organization, and the service organization actually provides the app to them. So next slide. So think of us as a way for your organization to create their own app. If you watched the football games over the weekend, you saw the commercials for the United Airlines app, which now walks you actually to your gate. We're looking at building the same type of experience that can then be customized for an organization like yours to use to provide to other clients. Next slide. So our philosophy in building this, and I think Denise mentioned, this all started, I have then a 4-year-old son, now he's 21, with providing him with the electronic tools to use to help him overcome executive functioning and emotional regulation issues. And our philosophy from the beginning was, how could we build something that they could use in whatever environment that they're in, whether they're at home, at work, at school. A big part of this was trying to cut down on different usernames and passwords, which we know can be a challenge. Next slide. And the other part of this is, how do we create something that could be utilized by teams of people that are supporting that individual? So they may have someone at home, at school, at work, and they're going to have different ways where they can, quote, Sherpa that individual, and we need to be able to handle that within the platform. Next slide. So think about all the different things on your phone. that an individual might have, timers, reminders, notifications. What we do is we take all those parts and we set that up so that you, the employment consultant or whoever is working with that individual, can actually go in and program to that individual's specific needs. Next slide. So in effect, LifeSherpa is a digital toolbox. We give you a set of tools. We help you set that up for a particular program. Nicole's going to talk about a program that we did in Philadelphia and also the research that went to it. And then we give you the ability to take those tools and actually customize them based on an individual needs. So this person might need a routine with videos in it. This person might just need a checklist. This person may just need an easy way to connect with their job coach or their resident assistant. Next slide. So this is a quick video on how LifeSherpa works. Denise, go ahead.
Introducing LifeSherpa, the all-in-one support platform that empowers support professionals to enhance capacity, visibility, and client outcomes. Meet Christy. She's a support professional who works at a service agency that helps individuals with disabilities. Meet Joe. He just qualified for services and is going to be working directly with Christy. Christy wants to ensure that Joe has a successful engagement. As part of Joe's program, Christy wants to digitally connect with him and start to form a bond that can help him meet his program goals. Based on the initial onboarding meeting, Christy uses a template to set up a customized experience for Joe on LifeSherpa, ensuring that he's set up with routines, reminders, and other personalized features. She provides him with a code that he uses to download LifeSherpa to his phone or tablet from the App Store, which will serve as the main form of remote communication between the two. LifeSherpa immediately enables Christy to form a strong bond with Joe through a variety of features, including video calling and messaging, routine setting, self-evaluations, personalized reminders, and status updates. This connection will help Christy to empower Joe and her other clients to generalize activities and achieve independence. In addition to connecting with Joe, Christy and her team can now use LifeSherpa to track key data points and observations for her full client caseload. Through app customization and personalization, Christy is able to help her clients overcome each of their unique challenges, like job retention, routines, emotional regulation, and more remotely. This allows her to avoid burnout, while also ensuring that she can cater to all of her clients' needs through the app. Contact us today to schedule a demo and see how LifeSherpa can work for you.
Next slide, please, Denise. Thank you. So in a nutshell, we're an enterprise platform that can be used in any types of program, residential, vocational, community services, et cetera. So let's talk about one particular case study so that we can get to the fun stuff that Nicole's going to talk about. Next slide. So we were working with a big service organization up in the Philadelphia area who contacted us initially and said, hey, we have an internship program and we'd like to really hit on three particular things: how to provide a very customized remote support program, how to decrease dependency on job coaches, and how to increase self-management and confidence. Next slide. So there were 5 individuals in this particular program. And again, Nicole's going to talk about the evidence that we saw. What you might see in the middle there, and I don't know if this can come through, but you see a picture of a hallway with a green arrow. Next slide. That was for a routine for an individual, a young lady by the name of Lily. And hopefully this will paint for us, Denise. So it should animate to the next part there. Just go ahead and hit enter. Right, and in Lily's case, she was in charge of transporting blood work from one location to another. And the problem is she would get lost. So what we did in LifeSherpa and what I was showing you in the previous screen, and Denise, if you could go to the next animation here, we actually worked with the job coach to build a routine that actually took pictures and arrows and walked her through the hallways to the elevator, to the hallways, et cetera. Now, if they ever changed the hallways and the elevators, we're in big trouble. But after about 2 weeks of utilizing Life Sherpa to help her get through the hospital, she didn't need to use it anymore. And at the end of it, we would give her a checklist that would help her do what she needed to do in the lab, build her confidence in what she was doing, and so forth. Next slide. Okay. So these slides, sorry about how that formatted on that, but Nicole, you want to talk a little bit about what you saw with your
Sure. Thanks, Doug.
research?
So again, hello everyone. So I was working with my capstone student in this was the University of Sciences, then now St. Joe's University, looking at, does the use of a digital coaching app change the work performance of students with IDD prepared to transition from school to work? Again, looking at, does it change their performance? We look at a lot of things, which I'll show you some data on the next slides. But, does it change it, and how does it change it? Do students, obviously work performance accuracy would be one thing we look at, and we look at that with all of our interns, but also we looked at some other data like feeling more comfortable, asking for help less, or some other things that we looked at along with that research project. So it was first run in 2022 with 5 interns. In 2023, there are 4 interns, and we just actually started collecting data, starting to collect data this week or next week. And there are 6 interns enrolled in that program this year. I'm going to go to the next slide, please. So this is kind of the format that we followed in collecting the data for this project. The first day of the rotation, the partner reporter. That's what we called it in our research terms, in our research project for the IRB and all that fun stuff, but that is a job coach. So the job coach and our intern, they did a pre-intervention survey. So it asked both the job coach and our intern participating in the rotation, number one, about how their job performance. So how is the intern doing? Are they doing it well? How do they feel about their performance? How satisfied are they with that performance? Do they feel confident in it? And then we also asked them, do they think that, I talk with my hands, sorry about that, I hit the space bar. Do they think that using this app will be something that will help them, and how could it possibly help them in their job tasks? In addition, with getting some baseline data on how they perform in the job. So what are they doing, and using Life Sherpa to do that. For over the 4 weeks, 4 times a week for the next 3 weeks, the student researcher observed the intern using Life Sherpa. And then the end of the observations, both the job coach and the intern completed the post-intervention survey, which was very similar to the pre-intervention survey. So how do you think you're doing on the job? How did Life Sherpa help you? All right, how do you feel confident in your performance? And then we looked at the numerical data with Excel and some of the survey results using Max QDA to process the qualitative data. You can go to the next slide, please. So this is the results. Again, we looked at many different things, and because this program was individualized for each intern, it's hard to look at all the things together, but percent of observed trials that met the expectations. So when the intern was being observed, did they meet the expectations of the job? So because each job is very different and each intern is very different. So again, as Doug mentioned, that could be something like we did for Lily, starting out with the videos and watching the video, going through the steps of the task, going to a checklist, timers, reminders, and what that looked like throughout those tasks. So we see a general trend from week 1 and their baseline to week 3 of obviously that important percentage of meeting expectations. In this first group, they generally all went on an upward slope, which is pretty nice to see in research. So they were pretty consistent. This group was pretty consistent with using the app, and all generally showed some improvement. Again, with the interns and the group of individuals we work with, we know that they may not always be 100% accurate. But what we did see, in addition to these improvements, were less calls to their job coach for help, increased independence with keeping being on time and doing their jobs in a timely manner. Interns felt more confident in doing their jobs, that if they weren't sure what to do next, they always had that checklist or, the Life Sherpa app video to go back to as a reference. So that was just some of the things that we found overall with this group of interns. We can go to the next slide. So in 2023, again, different group of interns, different group of job tasks. The data looked a little bit different. So week one, like I said, we have our baseline, and then going over the next 2 weeks. What we did see that was a little bit different that we hadn't seen in the previous study. If you look at intern number 3, what is not apparent in this, that is one thing that we don't show on here, is app use. So intern 3 stopped using Life Sherpa. He did not think that he needed to use it. And you can see, oh no, sorry, not intern 3, it is intern 2. His performance actually went down from his first week. So he was doing pretty well when he first started using the app, but his accuracy actually went down after he stopped using the app. So that was the first time that we saw that, where using the app, accuracy was just about 97%. When we stopped using the app in the later weeks, the accuracy actually went down. But generally, the trend continued with our interns, going from where they were to increasing over the weeks. And then again, also progressing them. So again, starting with maybe a video, specific instructions, and going to more of a checklist after that. Okay, the next one. Doug, you're muted, Doug.
Bad. Okay. Thank you, Nicole. So real quick, I just want to take you through one other case study that we did in the last 2 years. We were working with a very large organization up in the Northeast that wanted to look at a new way to do follow-on services. And this is going to an employee's site, whether that's once a week or once a month, once a quarter. And this was prompted by the Massachusetts Department of Disabilities, who wanted to deal with this because of COVID. So we actually went in and started working on a completely new way to do this with this organization. And one of the things that we found is that they were entering data not only into a Word document, then retyping it into the portal in order to be paid. So we worked with them to try and integrate systems. Next slide, please. Okay, and Denise, you can go ahead and hit both the returns here so that they animate out. So in the old way, what they were doing was they were going out to client sites. They were setting a specific time to go do the follow-on visit. They were documenting the activity, et cetera. And in the new way, we converted that activity into connecting the coach and the individual in real time. And you may have noticed we have our own video calling and texting built into ours. And a lot of people ask, well, why don't we just use text and FaceTime? And what we learned early on in working with service organizations is that there's a big concern about sharing private information. So we've set this up so the client and the coach can have all that communications without exchanging any of that data. And I do want to mention that we originally went out to 20 individuals, and of the 20, 10 held their hands up and said, yeah, we'd like to try working with our contact on a remote basis. 7 said, no, we like having them come out and visit us in person. And 3 didn't have proper devices. And on that note, we run on Android, Apple, reasonable if you go back to an iPhone 8, for example, to make that work. And we can also run on a network. Next slide, please. So we did that, and then we were looking at caseload and the amount of time that they were spending on those 10 individuals. And I mean, this isn't rocket science. We got people out of the cars. and we got them to do more on a remote basis. And they were able to collapse the amount of time that, not quite 50%, but they were able to collapse the amount of time that they were spending with those 10 individuals into something a lot more efficient, which was to help the organization free up more time to work with people that needed either more help or they could take on more referrals. Next slide. So I do want to mention that we're also working with organizations like Simply Home that are doing residential support. It's pretty simple. Think of a routine that you might want to have for the morning that can be triggered when someone gets out of bed via a sensor, or they go into a kitchen and open a refrigerator. We can build in routines, and we're getting ready to launch a big case study on this out in the Bay Area, where we're combining Life Sherpa and sensor technology to help folks in independent living situations. Next slide. So if you're interested in learning more, after this, we can send you an email that gives you a Calendly link, and we can sit down and give you a much larger, in-depth type of demonstration. So, Carrie, is it back to you?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you all. And we can open it up, Denise, to questions or comments, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that folks may have.
So if you have a question, you can raise your hand or you can type it into the chat. And the questions can be about the use of technology in regards to support coordination, employment, and or life skills in the home or around the home and or in the community. It doesn't necessarily have to be based just on the stuff that you saw here. Remember, we have an OT, we have a ESC specialist or educator, and we have a technology guru. So this is all about how can you utilize technology to make life easier.
I would prefer geek, Denise, versus guru. Thank you.
Well, I didn't want to say geek because some people get offended.
I'm not.
So one of the viewers wants to know, are you a waiver provider? Either of you, any of you?
She's probably talking about Doug, right?
Yeah, we are not. We don't sell to individuals. So we're not on waiver. We're something that the organization would purchase, like they purchase their case management software.
So it's something that you guys could convince APD to purchase and provide to all support coordinators in their agencies.
If we were technology first state, things would be a lot easier.
It would be.
So that's why I brought that up. And I'm putting a link for Simply Home. Doug had mentioned that. Second part of that question, Susan, was about PERS, the Personal Emergency Response System. I know that PERS is one sensor that Simply Home does connect with in the home. So if you want to look into them, if Doug has any other ideas about that.
Yeah, I recommend all of you do take a look at some of the videos for Simply Home. I love it. I've been wishing it was here for about 8 years now, and hoping that it grows and becomes a common thing, and that agencies utilize it as some other states do to ensure the safety and security of individuals. Any other questions? Any comments? Well, people, I'm going to give you back almost an hour of your time. So come up with a question.
I know the weather is so gloomy. It's like everybody's wanting to hop back in bed, right?
We have snow in Philadelphia, so.
Yeah, it's better gloomy than snowbanks that you guys are getting up there.
Yeah. It'll be 40 in Clearwater tomorrow. And in Tampa.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
So,
goodness.
okay, since there are no other questions, what I would like to know is, have you guys worked on anything together that you could share the details of? All
Well,
three of you.
we've been working with Nicole now and her team at St. Joe's for 3 years on building the research out. And we've also worked with Carrie on getting some projects launched. They're not quite out the door yet, so we can't talk about specifics, but we hope to be we hope to be doing more real soon. We would love to be able to do more in the state of Florida.
Okay, sounds good. And how did technology assist your son as he aged out of school to be more inclusive in the community or included into the community?
Thank you for bringing that up. So again, I got into this because I'm a parent, and I saw how kids around Scott were picking up the iPhone and the iPad, and really, to a certain extent, it was a breakthrough. And I think it's because of the touch and visual interface, which was really big for at least in his case, he is autism and IDD. And I just thought, hey, at the same time, Scott was going through therapy where we had the clipboards and the timers and the laminated signs that you put up in the bathroom and all the other things that as a parent you try and use to help someone who's got executive functioning challenges get through it. And our big challenge was how to get him out to the bus because he's a young man who also has to take medications. It's a complicated morning. In fact, there were 18 steps to doing that. And when we first built out Life Sherpa, that was one of the first test cases was, could we use the phone and getting the parents, in this case, out of the equation. If he could just follow something on his phone. And the great news and what it inspired us to go on further was he did, because he was able to say, I did it, I did it, I did it. And after a while, he was able to do those routines on his own, but he still liked having the idea of being able to say, I did it, right? And that's what, Life Sherpa solved my getting him out to the bus problem. Okay, that was a major thing. It was also a great divorce prevention tool. It had a big impact. And that's what kind of led us to start thinking about your industry, about if this is something that could be used by service organizations in a way where the service organization assumes the responsibility of actually programming it for the individual. Because we also saw lots of parents trying to use other technology, but they didn't know how to set it up to a certain extent. They didn't know how to apply it. So we thought service organizations would be a great place to start. So that was a very loquacious answer to the question, Denise, but I hope that takes it.
Okay. And this question is not pre-arranged. Now that your son is an adult, does he still use technology in his everyday life?
Yes, he does. In fact, he's still using Life Sherpa because there are still routines that he does. We have him doing his outdoor exercises, so there's 5 steps to that. By the way, one of the things I didn't show you today is we also have a reward system. If you want to activate a reward system, you can do that. So you get points, and that could go to a gift card or something of that nature. But yes, he's still using that. And he's gotten good at using some other tools. We believe there are certain things outside of Life Sherpa that this cohort needs to learn on their own. Email, calendar, real important, and a couple of other things. And those have been real key to his growth.
Okay, thank you. And Nicole, at SGU, have you assisted any individuals to obtain employment or improve in employment using technology in your OT skills?
Sure. So I think so this program that we're running is with the organization that Doug with Ken Crest through the Project Search program. So in doing that, the hope is that through this internship program that they're working in now, to support them in the jobs that they're in now, but also to help them in using some of those skills and going out into the work world. A lot of the interns, I was unfortunately in the hospital that the project was done myself over the summer for gallbladder surgery, and one of those interns brought my food in. So they're still employed at the hospital a year and a half, 2 years later, and maintaining that. And I think I just want to also go back to something else that Doug said. I think the technology piece is what makes this, number one, more attractive, because technology, phones, that's pretty much part of their everyday lives. We're not asking them, and they're probably better at it than we are most of the time, right? Oh, all I needed to do was click here, click this. So using a phone, using a tablet is something they do all day long. So adding this to their routine, they're comfortable in doing that, which in most cases, making them more likely to keep going back to it. And it's not, and also having that interactive piece, and something that Doug, in a conference, the Project Search conference that Doug and I both attended last year, something they looked at, one of the smaller studies that was a different group did, was looking at using video and using technology versus just paper, like reading, something off of a paper, like you said, the old way, as Doug referred to in the presentation, checking things off, but versus having that interactive, the video, the pictures, to support someone. Individuals did much better when they were using that kind of resource. So I think that's another really important piece, that in addition to the individualized approach that Life Sherpa can provide, but using that video and the technology itself, like I said, they're more interested in learning more about it, using, their phone, or versus just paper and pencil.
Okay. And Carrie must have known the next question was going to be for her. So can you share at least one employment success in which you utilized technology?
Haven't been job coaching in a minute. It's been a long time, unfortunately, but I think the most recent thing for me that I wanted to share, I did actually my dissertation for my doctorate using technology. So we were using video-based interventions, so video-based prompts versus modeling. So prompts is when you show one step at a time. So step, do, versus modeling is the whole task and then do. So we were using video-based prompting to make smoothies. And what we saw was that when someone's watching a step and it's describing what to do in the step, and then you let the student know, okay, your turn, they can go ahead and do that just watching the video. They need zero intervention sometimes from a job coach to model and show first. So that was really interesting to me, that sometimes we need to collect baseline using some of these tools and not just jump in and provide the modeling that we're used to doing. Our old school approach was always, well, let me show you how to hang this shirt. Let me show you how to enter the data. But we can actually replace that modeling with video-based interventions and then add in the supports needed, such as adding an additional verbal prompt, or adding some gestural prompts or modeling, or hand over hand if needed. But we need to move away from that. So folks were very successful in making smoothie recipes. We had 4 different smoothies. They got to drink it afterwards, which was, an extra bonus. But we did that, and we really could see where video modeling was the true implementation of teaching. It was the intervention, and it replaced a job coach teaching a skill, or a manager even teaching a skill. So I just wanted to show that example, just as how powerful it can be used as a learning tool, and not just as a reminder, or in addition to job coaching. So if we could fade out the modeling and the verbal prompts as coaches, then I think that we would come a long way.
Thank you very much. So to you, Carrie Morse, to you, Doug Meeker, and to you, Nicole Roberts, thank you guys for presenting this topic to those in the state of Florida this evening. I truly appreciate that you provided evidence-based practices that do work and can assist individuals to be more independent, not only in their home, but also in the community and in employment. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks for having us, Denise.
Great. Thank you. Pleasure being here.
Please visit our website for more information about our programs, projects, and how you can get involved.